Most records ask for your time. A few ask for your attention. Almost none ask for your patience. Cottonwood Hill does something rarer than all three. It asks for your trust. Released in 1971 by Brainticket, this album has long been framed as extreme, dangerous, or confrontational. Those descriptions are not wrong, but they are incomplete. What they miss is that Cottonwood Hill is not an exercise in excess. It is an exercise in discipline, severe discipline. From the opening moments, the album establishes a sonic environment that is uncompromising but remarkably focused. This is not chaos, it is intensity with intention. Every element feels placed with purpose, even when it resists conventional musical logic. The organ, often cited as the album's dominant force, is not used melodically in any traditional sense. Instead, it functions as a structural spine. It sustains tension rather than releasing it. This choice alone sets the album apart from most psychedelic records of its era, which tended to equate experimentation with freedom or expansion. Cottonwood Hill chooses compression. It tightens the space around the listener. That compression is one of the album's great achievements. It creates an atmosphere that feels continuous rather than episodic. You are not moving from idea to idea. You are being held inside a single evolving condition. The guitars contribute to this not through virtuosity or display, but through texture. They cut, hover, and dissolve, refusing to settle into familiar roles. They never reassure, they never soften the environment. What is remarkable here is restraint. For an album so often described as extreme, Cottonwood Hill is deeply controlled. The band understands exactly how much instability to introduce and when. There is no sense of indulgence, nothing overstays its purpose. The shifts in density are deliberate, measured, and surprisingly elegant. The rhythm section reinforces this sense of calculated tension. Rather than anchoring the music, it destabilizes it. Beats appear just long enough to suggest structure, then withdraw. This is not incompetence or abstraction for its own sake. It is a conscious refusal to let the listener settle into predictability. The result is a listening experience that remains alert from beginning to end. Vocals, when they surface, are used sparingly and intelligently. They do not dominate. They do not attempt to clarify meaning. Instead, they operate as another layer of sound, another texture within the larger environment. This decision removes the usual hierarchy between voice and instrument, allowing the album to function as a unified sonic field, rather than a collection of foreground and background elements. The infamous warning labels that accompanied early pressings of the album are often treated as novelty. In reality, they reflect an honest understanding of what the record does to the listener. Not harm, but displacement. Cottonwood Hill disrupts orientation. It removes the listener's usual points of reference and refuses to replace them with new ones. This is a bold artistic choice, and one that requires confidence. That confidence is evident throughout the album. There is no attempt to soften the experience for accessibility, no effort to provide an entry point. Cottonwood Hill assumes the listener willing to meet it on its own terms. That assumption may have limited its immediate reach, but it is precisely what has allowed the album to endure. Placed within the broader context of early 1970s experimental music, Cottonwood Hill occupies a unique position. It shares surface similarities with krautrock, but lacks the genre's characteristic momentum. It aligns with psychedelic music, but rejects its optimism and color. Instead, it moves towards something more austere, more inward, and more demanding. This is not music about escape. It is music about confrontation. And that confrontation is handled with sophistication. The album never descends into formlessness. It never loses coherence. Even at its most intense moments, there is a clear sense of authorship. You feel that someone is guiding the experience, even if they refuse to explain where you are going. What makes Cottonwood Hill particularly impressive is how well it resists aging. It does not sound dated because it never aligned itself with trends. It did not chase contemporary relevance. It did not attempt to define a movement. Instead, it committed fully to its own internal logic. That commitment gives it a permanence that many more celebrated records lack. Repeated listening reveals this even more clearly. While many experimental albums lose their edge over time, Cottonwood Hill maintains its tension. Familiarity does not neutralize it. The experience remains demanding, which speaks to the precision of its construction. This is not an album built on surprise alone. It is built on sustained pressure and balance. Importantly, this is not an album that mistakes difficulty for depth. Its complexity serves a clear purpose. It challenges the listener's expectations about pleasure, structure, and time. In doing so, it expands the vocabulary of what rock music can be. The album's conclusion is particularly telling. There is no grand resolution, no release that reframes what came before. The sound simply withdraws, leaving the listener in silence. That silence feels earned. It carries weight. It completes the experience not by explaining it, but by ending it. As a critic, it is rare to encounter an album that commits so fully to its vision without compromise. Cottonwood Hill does exactly that. It does not ask to be loved. It does not ask to be celebrated. It asks to be taken seriously. And that is its greatest strength. This is a record that rewards attentive listening, patience, and openness. It does not flatter the listener. It respects them. It assumes intelligence. It assumes endurance. It assumes curiosity. For those willing to meet it on those terms, Cottonwood Hill remains one of the most singular and accomplished works of experimental rock ever recorded. Not because it shocks, not because it provokes, but because it understands exactly what it is doing and never wavers. If you have stayed with this record or this review until the end, you already understand why it matters. Not as a relic, not as a myth, but as a fully realized artistic statement that continues to challenge, reward, and endure. And that is the mark of a truly great album.